Welcome to Let's Talk Kids. I'm Mary Coogan, President and CEO of Advocates for Children of New Jersey and the host of Let's Talk Kids, a video podcast with policymakers, community partners, and experts on issues and programs that impact children and families. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Andrea Breitwieser from the Office of Childcare in the Department of Human Services, Division of Family Development. Welcome, Andrea. So glad you could join.
Thank you for having me.
I always like to ask people how they came to be in the position they're in. So how did you come to work in the Office of Childcare?
So I actually started at the Department of Children and Families before going to the Department of Human Services. I was overseeing and supporting the federal home visiting programs that the state was implementing at that time. And then the state decided to apply for a Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grant. And embedded in that grant was something called acnj Kids, which is the state's quality rating and improvement system. And so an opportunity came along for me to make a transition from one department to the next to work in the division specifically on the implementation of the state's QRIS.
So that program, though, is within the Division of Family Development.
Correct.
Right?
It is actually one of our cornerstone programs within the Office of Childcare. We put it under the quality side of the work that we do, and it's really there to support the provider community in improving on the quality of care that they're providing to our youngest kids.
Have you always been interested in childcare, or what did you do before then coming to the state?
Sure. So I started working actually right out of college with my undergrad in the city of Paterson, managing a Healthy Families program, which was a home visiting program that supported new moms and babies on the importance of maternal-child health bonding. And so from there, my professional career has always been in the element of working with families with young children.
That's great. And you do this because you have kids of your own, or?
I am a mom of triplets.
Wow.
So, understanding the struggles that a young family has with young kids, obviously is near and dear to my heart. And there's many things I have learned through the course of my professional life that I wish I knew as that young mom raising 3 kids.
Well, hopefully today, the information you're going to share is going to help other moms who might have triplets or twins or just a single child know a little bit more about childcare.
Yes.
Well, that's really wonderful. And again, to your point, people don't know what's out there, right? And sometimes they're looking for something because there's a crisis or there's an emergency or someone's going back to work and now they're looking for childcare and maybe they wish they had looked a little sooner, right?
Yes.
So it's good to know. And I do know that New Jersey has a lot of resources.
We
right?
do. Correct.
So we're here to talk about some of those resources. So my understanding is each county has a place where somebody can find out about childcare. The Childcare Resource and Referral Agency?
Correct.
So what are those?
So the Childcare Resource and Referral Agencies are nonprofit agencies. There's a couple of county-based agencies as well that are housed within the county system, but majority are nonprofits. And they, the intent is we contract with them to support things, not eligibility for families that might need assistance for childcare, as well as supporting childcare programs, providers, whatever that looks like. It could be family childcare or center-based with training, technical assistance around our system.
Okay. So is that there's a organization in every county that is determined to be that childcare
Correct.
resource and referral network? And my sense is it's probably been the same agencies generally for a long time.
Historically, they've all been the same. It is a contract, so they do go out for bid every once in a while, but ultimately, many of the agencies have been the same agencies for many years. For instance, in Essex County, where we are right now, it's Programs for Parents, and they've been the Child Care Resource and Referral Agency for a very long time. There's many around the state. They all have different names, but they all are responsible for supporting the implementation of the Child Care Assistance Program.
So I'm new to New Jersey. Where do I find the list?
So you can visit childcarenj.gov. There's a whole plethora of resources on our website. And if you're looking for childcare or need access or want to find things in your community, you can get linked to the individual childcare resource or referral agencies from there.
What are the services that if I'm a new parent and I'm coming in, what could I expect?
Sure.
If I walk in the door?
So the childcare resource and referral agencies, we call them CCR&Rs. That's their acronym in our state. The CCR&Rs will help families determine whether or not there's resources that can support them in paying for childcare. They will also be able to provide a list or explain the different types of childcare, as well as other resources that might be a need for the family. They really have an understanding of what is in the community that can help support families.
Do I have to go to the CCR&R or can I find out the list on the Programs for Parents website?
So if you want to do a search for childcare programs in your area, you can actually go to childcareandj.gov and do search for providers, and you could put in your zip code, your address, a town, and it would bring up the providers in your community. And you can search whether or not they serve infants, toddlers, preschoolers. There's a whole slew of search features that you can choose to help you get that information. But if you're struggling, or let's say you don't have access to the internet in some way, you can walk into a CCR&R and they have the ability to provide that support. They have the technology there and will help walk families through that.
And as a new parent, would they tell me like characteristics of the child care center that I should be looking for, or what might be the right fit for my family, hours, that type of thing?
So when choosing childcare, it's really a personal decision. But what the CCR&R can do is help you be an informed consumer. So they'll talk about the different quality initiatives, such as Grow and J Kids, which will really provide a rating of the center or family childcare home. They'll also explain the different types. So if you have a newborn, maybe you don't want them in the center, or maybe you want them with a family or friend or neighbor. They can explain how you can get access to those resources to support the care of your children.
So what's a family, friend, or neighbor, or family child care?
So there are two different things. Okay. So a family, friend, or neighbor is if you have identified a family or friend that you wish to care for your children. They can't care for more than 2 children. But if you are eligible to receive child care assistance, we will pay that family, friend, or neighbor to care for your children. But they do have to meet certain health and safety requirements and go through a comprehensive background check. And also, we do go out and monitor and inspect their homes or where the child's being cared for. Family child care home is they can be registered in the state of New Jersey. And if you are receiving child care assistance from us, they'll give you a list of the family child care providers in your area and that you can choose from. So maybe you want your child to be in a more home-like setting. They can't care for more than 5 children at any one time. And so the CCR&Rs will be able to explain the differences in that regard. But they also, if you're receiving child care assistance, also have to meet those health and safety requirements, the comprehensive background check, and also they're monitored annually.
I mean, that makes sense. The state is offering some assistance, so they're going to make sure that your child is in a safe environment, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So if I went into a center and I say, I know there's 5 centers in my area, but they're large and I'm looking for something smaller, then they might refer me to a family child care provider.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So does somebody from the CCR&R do these inspections?
So it depends on the type of program. So for a family, friend, or neighbor, or a family child care home, the inspectors are housed at the local CCR&Rs. For centers, that is actually done and operated out of the Department of Children and Family Office of Licensing. So they have inspectors that go out to the centers and inspect them.
What happens if I'm taking my child to a center or a family child care provider and then something happens and I just have some concerns? Do I go back to the CCR&R and tell them there's a problem, or I think there's a problem?
So there's a mechanism where you can call in your concerns, and that would trigger an inspector, whether it's from the CCR&R or the Office of Licensing, depending on the care, to go out and meet with the programs and do an assessment of what's happening.
Oh, okay. I mean, again, I'm thinking most people aren't going to have that concern, but it's nice to know.
Yes,
there
correct.
is a mechanism. When you talk about CCR&R, that rating system, how does that work?
So CCR&R Kids is a voluntary program that providers or centers can enroll in. And it's a program that provides technical assistance, training, and supports to the program or provider to improve on the services that they're providing to your family. So it's a way for us as a consumer to have an easy way to understand the level of quality that's being provided. So in our system, you can obtain a 3, 4, or 5-star. And so when you're searching for a provider, you'll be able to know that they've received some extensive training and supports on the services that they're providing on things such as curriculum implementation, room arrangement. And we know that for our youngest kids that interactions are very important. And so they support the caregivers to provide quality interactions to your child.
Well, that's interesting. So actually, that additional training is provided by your Office of Childcare?
So we contract with Rutgers University, who provides an extensive amount of ongoing training, but all the foundational trainings are actually provided through the Childcare Resource and Referral Agency.
Another thing that they do.
Yes.
Okay. What happens? So now I've identified a childcare center and I want to send my 2 children. Or if I have triplets, I'm going to bring my 3 kids, right?
Yeah.
So, and I find out the price of it and I can't afford this. What happens next?
So we recently moved to an online application for our child care assistance program through acnj helps. And so families can go on there and enter their information in an application, and it's triggered to the local CCR&R. So once the CCR&R receives that application, they will start their outreach to families. They'll provide a documentation checklist, and that checklist will be able to support families in knowing what information is needed for the CCR&R to determine whether or not your family meets eligibility for childcare assistance. And so there's a certain number of work hour requirements, as also an income threshold that families have to meet. And then obviously you have to be a resident of New Jersey. So they check on, your residency, meaning that you live in the state. And that's done through the CCR&R. And if you have a question or whatnot around your eligibility, the local CCR&R will help you with that. They'll help you walk through that process.
So you're saying it's a portal, so the documentation can all be uploaded.
So the documentation is not able to be uploaded.
Oh.
That's on the wish list. So we only just moved to the online application, but the CCR&R can work with you on obtaining that documentation, whether you mail it into them or you drop it off at their office.
Okay. So now I qualify and I get some type of assistance. We're going along just fine. 6 months later, my husband gets transferred and we're now moving from Essex County to Burlington County. Do I get to keep my subsidy?
Yes. So once you are deemed eligible, the great thing about the Child Care Assistance Program is your eligibility is for 12 months. And so every 12 months, we redetermine your eligibility for childcare. But once you're deemed eligible for that 12-month period, it's yours for 12 months.
And that funding goes directly to the child care center?
Correct. So we pay child care programs on behalf of families. And so there is an agreement that is developed between the parent and the provider that they choose, and we pay based on that agreement.
So if I move from Essex to Burlington, then I notify who to say, send my payment south?
So you actually will go back to your CCR&R, give them a call or let them know that you are moving and where you're moving to, and they will help with that transition to the new CCR&R, who will then develop a new agreement for your family for whatever childcare program you choose in that county.
It sounds like there's a lot of processes, but at least everybody's sort of on the same page with the processes in
Correct.
each county, right?
You should be able to walk in the door of a CCR&R no matter what county and get the supports you need.
So then at the year, you just update your information and any changes?
So the CCR&R will reach out to you as you're coming up to that eligibility redetermination period, and they will walk you through that process. So again, you have to show your income, submit information related to your employment, and obviously where you're living, and things like that. And they will walk you through that whole process. So I think one of the things I would want families to understand is that they're not alone in this experience, and that there's someone at the CCR&R there that's going to help them through. We know systems are complicated, and you may be going through a lot as a family, and so the CCR&R is there to support you through that.
Okay. It sounds similar to what happens with New Jersey Family Care. Again, every 12 months, you have to
Correct.
update all your income information and do that. And it's always good to know that somebody's there to help and
Yes.
remind you that stuff is due.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say my kids are a little older now and it's really about after school, or we're talking about summer.
Mm-hmm.
Is that help the same program available for that too?
Sure. We do provide assistance to families for before and after school. So we know that if they're in school for the 6-hour day, but sometimes most people start work earlier and end later. So there is childcare assistance for families that need before and after care. And then we know summer can always be a very trying period of time. And so we do provide supports for summer camps. Those are actually certified and monitored by the Department of Health. And they also have to meet the requirements of the comprehensive background checks and specific health and safety trainings. We provide childcare assistance for children up to age 13. And so before and after or summer camps would be that prime time that for those older children that we would provide supports. We do have supports available for children with special needs if under the age of 19.
So for a typical family, though, all of that information and that coordination can happen through the CCR&R, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So people can take a breath, and I'm probably getting too complicated by asking. But I think it's good for people to know it's not just childcare. We're not just talking about kids preschool age.
No,
right?
We're not.
No.
So we're talking about infants all the way up to age 13. And then, of course, if you have a child with special needs, we'll provide supports if you're under the age of 19.
If I now decide that I want to become a family child care provider, or I want to open up a child care center, can I also go back to my CCR&R and get some help or information from them?
So the Child Care Resource and Referral Agency would always be the place I would want someone to know or remember to go to for anything related to childcare. And so the CCR&Rs do provide specific supports to individuals that want to become a registered family child care home. When it comes to centers, they'll help direct them, but the Department of Children and Families Office of Licensing is really the entity that would provide support from a center for folks that want to open a center. For family child care homes, you would go directly to the CCR&R, and they will support you through that process. They'll let you know what you need, what it entails, and how you go through the registration.
And would they maybe help by asking questions that maybe things I didn't think I needed to know about family child care, that then there might be some training? Or
there's a whole extensive amount of training that providers have to go through, and all that will be done with the support at the CCR&R. They'll also do a pre-inspection to let you know what areas of your home you might need to adjust to make it a safe environment to serve children. But they'll walk you through that whole process.
What else do CCR&Rs do?
The biggest thing that I would want anyone that was looking at this podcast to understand is that we know our systems can be complicated, but there is help and support out there. And the local CCR&Rs can be that support for you. Outside of this, choosing a childcare provider, being educated on where you can find their most recent monitoring report, they also provide activities and parent involvement activities related to child development. They're called Books, Balls, and Blocks. And it's an event that they host quarterly where you can go with your child and do activities to work on a developmental screening tool. And if, let's say, there is a concern raised or you have a concern, it gives you actually some material to go back to your medical professional to have a conversation about whether or not your child should get further evaluation. They also will be able to help direct your family to other resources that might be in your community that maybe you're not aware of. And they also host regularly parent cafes. So we know it's hard to be a parent, and it's hard to sometimes, if you're new to a particular area, let's say, it helps you create a social network. And it's a great place for families to go to create that social network.
So they really try to be a support
Correct.
to families,
Yes.
right? So I'm thinking when you talked about
books, balls, and blocks.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, if I had a young child and maybe I wasn't sure if they were meeting their developmental milestones, that would be a place that would pick that up.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. And so we know we have early intervention services programs, but they're time limited, right?
Yes.
From infant to age 3, and kids need to be evaluated. So that might be a place where parents might discover maybe their child's a little behind.
Yes. And maybe where some resources could be to help support them.
The family cafes or the parent cafes, that could be a whole variety of topics.
Correct.
Right?
And they help parents that are involved help drive the topics that are discussed and what the format of that looks like. And so those will look different, but it's also driven by those who are participating in those activities and meetings.
And my sense is it's all related to something family.
Correct. Yeah.
And probably to younger kids.
Well, let's say parents are interested in understanding discipline and what that means, or they'll bring topics in to help provide that and education to help support families on questions they might have. So it just depends on, again, the community which develops in those parent cafes for what they will discuss in those cafes.
So they could do something on nutrition, maybe.
Correct.
Or
Yes.
some other community activity.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But then at least if you're new to the community, you don't have to be so alone, right? You sort of have
Yes.
a little network of support.
Absolutely.
That's great. What do they do in terms of assistance for actually childcare center staff or family childcare providers? Are there supports for that group, the provider side?
Yes. So there's a huge amount of work that they do that provides support to the workforce in general. There's a number. Well, first of all, it's the place that programs and providers will go for health and safety training, and a place where they go for progressive trainings that they might have interest in and understanding a little bit more about child development. But there's a whole slew of training and technical assistance that the CCR&Rs provide to the provider community. They do a number of different activities and supports, whether it's geared towards the infant toddler workforce, so those that are providing care to babies and our youngest children, to, let's say, there's questions or there's training that they have needs on in regards to preschool and what that looks like for them. But all that they can access through the CCR&Rs.
So that part of the CCR&R is to make sure that staff at the centers are up on the latest.
Correct.
So that should make parents feel better.
Yes.
Well,
I think parents need to understand that if you are a registered provider or licensed childcare center, there's certain standards that you have to meet. And so the CCR&Rs help the provider community meet those standards. And they include health and safety as well as other trainings. You want to make sure that the provider that you're choosing has an understanding of child development, but also understands the importance of business management. And so there's trainings around business management and budgeting. Depending on where your child goes for care, a quality program will be providing activities for families to be engaged in their child's education and what that looks like. So there's training and supports to help programs determine how they implement that for families to be engaged in that way. And that's just outside of just your normal health and safety training, like appropriate diapering and sanitation practices. All those trainings are provided through the local CCR&R. You don't have to figure out the system on your own. The CCR&R will meet with you. They can tell you about the different types of care that exist. They will let you know if there is a sliding scale, let's say, at a child care center. So let's say you're not eligible for child care assistance subsidy. Well, there might be other sort of scholarships available. They'll know if a resource exists at a particular center. They'll be able to help you understand that. They'll direct you to our checklist. So if you have questions and you want to do visits and you're not sure where, what you're looking for, we have a checklist that will help you determine, helps you ask the right questions when you go out and visit the centers or family childcare homes. So I think it's important to know that you're not alone. You don't have to worry about navigating the system alone, that the CCR&R will help you through that process.
That is the place you should start.
That's the place you should start.
Okay.
I wish I knew about the CCR&R before I made those decisions for my triplets. I can tell you it was a very personal decision that we made when we placed them in care. And so I just wish I had a little bit more knowledge prior to. And so I wish I knew about the CCR&R before making those decisions. I might have still made the same decision, but at the end of the day, I feel like I would have been a more informed consumer than maybe I was.
And how old are your triplets now?
They're 18. They just graduated high school.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
Yes. 3 very different paths they're all taking, but equally proud of all 3. So, yeah.
All right. So in terms of childcare, my sense is it's not like there is a magic way to make a decision about what childcare center is, but there would be, as you mentioned, there's a checklist. People can learn about safety issues or things they should be asking questions about. And then given a good variety of places that they might be able to go. How many childcare centers are there in New Jersey? Roughly?
So childcare centers, there's well over 4,000 that exist around the state. For family childcare homes that are registered, there is around 1,300 that exist. And so there's a large number of providers in our state.
4,000. That's a lot.
That's a lot. So, the CCR&Rs will help walk you through what are your likes. Maybe you need to make a decision based on convenience of location. Maybe there's hour requirements that you need. Maybe you need a center that opens really early because you start really early. Maybe you are a third shift worker and need care for the third shift. That's difficult. So they'll help understand if those resources exist in your community to help direct you on how to get access to them.
That's great. Especially things about hours, because that wouldn't be something typical unless I could see a parent who's maybe working a 3 to 11, because I bet there's not as many centers that provide that care.
Correct.
But that few hours in the morning make a difference,
They
right?
do, yes.
Or a few hours after school make a difference. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, Andrea, I really appreciate you coming by and chatting with us. And I'm hoping that people will watch this podcast and learn something and really at least make the first step, the correct step, by going to their county resource and referral network, or the CCR&R, as we call it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for watching. Visit the description to find out more information about today's conversation. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you enjoyed the video and want to be updated when our newest interviews are released.